Hi everyone, Maria here, and welcome to Season 1 of GGUTTALKS, GGUTT, a podcast focusing on business and tech for good, experience design, and gut feelings.
Said how confident you are. When you're not confident, we hear it. When you're afraid, we hear it. When you're happy, we do hear it. And when you're sad, we hear those different intonations in your voice. Um, it's not always about how you see the person, it's also about what you're hearing from that person. I don't know if this answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely, actually, and it triggers some others. So we mentioned personality, identity, and it's kind of the brand in a certain way because it's your reputation, it's
Yeah.
what you're known for, as you said. So I don't have anyone on top of my mind that makes me think of, okay, this voice, makes triggers this kind of emotion or allows you to recognize who you're talking about.
Yeah. But here, what you just said makes me think of voice actors, meaning, actors who are doing voiceovers or like documentary voices, David Attenborough or Morgan Freeman. When you hear their voices, there's something so appealing, so peaceful about it. And you know their voices, you recognize the voice immediately, and you know that, oh, this is Morgan Freeman. And it kind of creates that happiness within that um, zen zen moment within you. At least for me, when I hear those voices, I feel like, oh, this is a familiar voice and he's actually talking to me, and so I'm gonna listen. So this is the best way of communication because there is confidence, there is that breath support, that fluidity when they're speaking, that ease and that simplicity without rushing things. Um, but also there is the timbre, there is the identity behind all that. And this is how we are actually interested in listening or watching to either that podcast or to that documentary. You know what I mean? Like you see, there are a lot of um, parody videos all over the internet where they're imitating either Morgan Freeman or David Attenborough or other voice actors or famous actors because it's so powerful. They say when people start making fun of you or when you start getting haters, it means you're actually really good. So
All right. Um, Now we have this question.
time for lunch.
No, I wanted to ask you this question because it's kind of linked to, indirectly to what you've been saying, but we're talking about the voice, obviously. And do you listen to your inner voice? Do you trust your gut feelings?
Yeah. For inner voice, gut feeling, it could be interpreted in many ways. Some just, interpret the same thing when they see signs or, the number 1111 or whatever. In my case, it's yes, I do listen to my own voice. I listen to my gut feeling because it never failed me. It never disappointed me. So there's a rationale behind everything when you want to do something, when you want to take a decision. But even when the decision is just makes sense, it's concrete. There's still that behind the scenes voice that kind of tells you what you actually need to do. You know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And actually, this is why I named my agency GUT with GGUTT. It's just to
I love
insist
it.
on it. So
I love it. So the double GUTT is very catchy.
thank you. Yes, this is the domain I found as well. But it's because when I started listening to my gut feelings, many things changed. So it's not an easy thing to achieve, I
Yeah.
must say. But it's for me, it was an achievement anyway, just to
Yeah. Yeah.
start doing things differently as well.
Yeah.
So, what would you tell someone who lacks confidence in any situation? It can be from pitching, selling, presenting, dating, anything
Mm,
it might be when it
yeah.
comes to work or relationships.
Mm.
How can the voice help for basing interactions?
So I have so many things to tell you, Maria. Um, First of all, almost everyone lacks confidence. Um, Not all the time, but at some point, especially when undertaking a new activity or doing a new choice, or when you're in uncomfortable and unknown grounds. Usually, you kind of lack that confidence. However, I want to tell you a story about once I was playing an opera role, and one of the baritones that was singing with us, he did not know his music. And so he went up during the first rehearsal. Everyone knew the music except for him. And he started improvising. He was singing the wrong notes. And and then he sat down and we were like taking a break. And I'm like, oh, you're like, you don't know the music. Like we were all kind of discussing that, and we all like acknowledged the fact that he didn't know the music. He said one thing. He said wrong and strong. So in other words, it means fake it till you make it in a way, but you can fake the lack of confidence while you learn until you're more comfortable, and then you have the proper confidence. Um, the same thing applies to the voice. You're afraid to speak in front of, others when you're on stage, or even when you're in a meeting. Like, it's true that I'm a stage performer, but I also work in academia, so I am constantly talking in front of large groups of people. So confidence comes from that stability, okay? Comfort zone. So go back to that inner self, inner comfort, in order to speak, even if you're not confident, even if you're afraid, you don't know what you're going to say. If you just go back to the source, what is the source? Your source is the breath. If you breathe and take your time, don't worry, people will listen to you. Take your time, but say it in a focused voice. One thing about that also is, I always say, people talk like that. It's very mouthy, mouth singing and mouth speaking. We want to avoid something like that. So we want to have a sound that is very focused, centered. So imagining really a thin line. Definitely advise, because this helps a lot. It will change everything about your voice. If you avoid using the lips too much and spreading like that, the sound will be way too much. You're producing a lot of air. It's going to destabilize you. It's going to destabilize people who are listening to you, and they're going to know that you're not quite there. So keep that focus, keep yourself centered, and you can interpret that in the way you want. It could be centered as in the voice is really centered, aligned from your lungs up to your forehead, or it could mean centered as in Zen. Are you centered? Are you living in the present moment?
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
It does. I mean, it's a lot of self-reflection, I think, as well, and self-awareness.
Yeah.
But it also taps into, it's a lot about, and this is something we kind of hear quite often, right? It's about how you say it and not about what you say.
Yes. And I believe Beethoven said something like, it's better to play a wrong note properly than playing the right note bad. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, it's definitely the same idea.